seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello everybody, welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. Joining me this evening, we've got Johnny Mcginty. Good evening, Johnny.
Good evening, how are we doing?
You sent me a picture of himself dressed as a Victorian servant earlier today.
I did, yep. I had a lovely day today. School trip was brilliant.
I was going to say with the authentic Victorian lanyard as well.
You know, I'll tell you very quickly, I do a little lesson whenever I go to a new school about, it's like a getting to know me lesson, and I get the kids to, I'll put up two options about me, and I'll get them to guess which one they think is the right one. And it's a bit of like, so they get to know some facts about me, and then also so I can, at the end I could be like, you see, that's why you shouldn't judge people based on when you meet them. And one of them is, do you think I'm a rugby coach or a scout leader? And I'm always like, oh, I wonder what they're going to say about this. And I was like, right, someone who said this was last week at the start of my new school. I said, someone who put their arm up to say that you think I'm a rugby coach, tell me why that is. And this little boy at the front, who discovered later plays for our primary 5 team, went, you're wearing a Howler 5 lanyard, and I see you at training every week. Like, great. Okay, well, good. That's the mystery of that one. Finally ruined. I guess we'll think of a new question.
It's good that he's observant, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we at some point we're going to be joined by Craig Manson, who is returning from training. So you've got Johnny and I for the moment. We are live at the moment on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We're also live on our super secret social media page for our Patreons. If you want to sign up for the Patreon, it's £3 a month. Patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. That will get you a bonus weekly episode and access to the live stream as well. So you can do that. If you listen to the podcast, you can listen to it on the Patreon app. You can also listen to the normal podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you can find podcasts. We will be there. There's been, Johnny, it's this. I mean, we've knocked this back to Thursday. And even normally when we used to do it earlier in the week, I'd always be like, there's no news this week. I don't know what I'm going to... We could talk about, there's the women's game, there's a bit Super 6, and there's been the URC, but apart from that, and then all the news happened at once today.
Yeah, it's quite handy, actually.
It is good. It's almost as if the SRU knew that we'd put the podcast back by a day, and we're waiting to release all the press releases. The main bit of news is we now know who Scotland have got for the Autumn Test series. That's been announced. To some controversy, which we'll get on to. So, 4 fixtures, as is tradition these days for Scotland, because one, we can fill Murrayfield for 4 games, where we used to struggle to do it for 3. So we've got Scotland versus Australia on Saturday, the 29th of October, and that's a 5:30 p.m. kickoff. We'll come back to that one. Scotland v Fiji then, Saturday, the 5th of November, kickoff at 1. Then it's the All Blacks on Sunday, the 13th of November at 2:15, and Argentina Sunday, the 19th of November at 3:15. All matches will be broadcast on Amazon Prime. So we know, again, for the first time I think in ages, or I think the first time since they left the BBC or the council telly, we kind of have some certainty about where the games are going to be. And I like Amazon's. I'll be honest, I like Amazon's coverage because
Yeah, I'm just going to say this: they've got the best commentary and punditry team by quite a long way. And I know like it upsets some people because everyone thinks it should all be free to air or whatever, but the teams the last 2 years of the autumn on Amazon have been significantly better than any of the BBC or ITV coverage.
And what I would say is, if you have Amazon already, then it doesn't matter because you're already paying for it because you're paying for your free deliveries or whatever. You'll get access to Amazon Prime. If you don't have Amazon and you time it right, you always get a free trial for the first month anyway. So it's pretty much free to air, really, unless you've done something daft like cancel your Amazon within the last month and then sign up for it again.
Yeah.
We've just signed up for a free trial for a month. I only cancelled it 2 months ago.
Because it's handy.
Yeah. Well, we don't need as many kind of things urgently to the door anymore because our kids are a bit older. When the kids were little, it was absolutely, you just needed baby wipes the next day.
Yeah, you'd be amazed how much stuff I need to order for school as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, and also I think the match packages as well, particularly afterwards, you go back into it. It's a little bit. I would say that if you want to watch the game back, it's a little bit spoilery when you go in to the package afterwards because it does kind of indicate who the first. If you're quick, you might spot that there's been some tries, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But if you've watched the game, or even if you manage to avoid the spoilers, it's great because you can watch you can just watch the tries or the penalties. You can watch an extended highlights package. You can watch the shortened highlights package.
Yeah, they're good at what they do. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's more like what you get. I think that's more what you tend to get. I think on the US, the US was something like NFL, right? That you get
definitely, yeah.
You can select the individual scores. You can, and it's what I think.
You pay a lot more. Like an NFL Game Pass costs about 200 or 250 quid for a season. But yeah, that's what you get. So you get like all the games live. You can choose your game. You get the condensed highlights. You get the extended highlights. You get the score-only highlights. You also get a thing where they just show the game and they show you everything that happens in the game, but they take out all the stoppages, which is really good.
Yeah.
And obviously for an NFL game, then that means it lasts exactly an hour.
Yeah.
Whereas in a rugby, I mean, if they were to do that for the rugby one, you'd get through a game in like 35 minutes.
Yeah, true.
Because there's like in the NFL, if the ball stops, the clock stops. Rugby's a little bit different. So if they're going to cut out everything where nothing's happening,
we'd never
get a game in half an hour.
Nobody'd ever go home. I also like the fact that during pandemic, Amazon was the only one that gave you the option to turn off the crowd noise as well.
Yes,
which is really good for fans of swearing.
Yes.
Should we talk about the Australia game then? Because that's weird, right?
Yeah, it really is. Game. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away before we get to the Patreon, but I was really struggling for a Hands in the Ruck today until those fixtures got announced.
So you can give us a clean version of the rant now. You see,
so there's two things that I really don't understand about it. One is that's the 5 o'clock kickoff, so that's the lights out game.
Yep,
and that is like I am blue in the face over the last decade or whatever, telling people that the lights out game at Murrayfield is one of the best sporting spectacles I've ever been to. And like, I've been to NFL games, I've been to Major League Baseball games in America, been to loads of internationals, football internationals, all sorts of stuff. And the lights out game at Murrayfield, the last one I went to was 2017, the All Blacks, when Doddy Weir brought the match ball out. And it honestly was like the most electric atmosphere I've ever experienced in my life. And doing that with half a team against Australia outside the window, I just don't understand.
So, but I was thinking about this, and I don't. Obviously, you lost Finn Russell. You're not going to have Finn Russell. You aren't going to have. I mean, Johnny Gray so nailed on these days.
I went through it and listed it, right?
Okay.
From the front back, people who are either sort of squad regulars or were in a match day 23 in this year's Six Nations, who we're now not going to have for that Australia game. Rory Sutherland, Johnny Gray, Andy Christie, Magnus Bradbury, Ben White, Finn Russell and Adam Hastings, Cam Redpath, Chris Harris, Duhan van der Merwe, Stuart Hogg. That's a lot of players to be missing.
Yeah, it is, to be fair. When you put, I mean, some of those are dispensable, but some of those, I think.
Oh, and Alan Dell, who was also in all the matches.
Who could forget? Of course, Alan Dell. That's we're screwed now against Australia. Alan Dell's not available.
Now, yeah, like admittedly, I forgot about him for a reason, but when you start adding them all together,
you know, it is significant. I mean, I think that if you're looking at it through the lens of not who we would pick, but who Townsend's likely to pick, though, you're probably down Finn, Duhan, and the Hogg. Harris as well, yeah, true. So there's 4 key players and all in the backs as well. Yeah,
that's what 4 Lions, 3 Test Lions.
Mm-hmm.
You're missing a Lion in the front row.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's a lot to ask people to pay for that, I guess.
Yeah. That's the other concern. I think is it defeats the purpose of a lights out game if it's not sold out.
Yeah.
And with all of them missing, there's potential for that to be a disaster against Australia.
I wonder how much people will feel cheated by that as well, who actually go, because I mean we know this around international time. Not everybody follows rugby religiously, kind of January through to December. People will only kind of dip it, and we know that happens with our listener figures. We get big peaks during the international windows, mainly Six Nations and then November. So there will be people that will rock up to the Australia game, will literally sit down in their seats and be like, "Where's Finn Russell?"
Yeah. And the thing is, they'll sell it on the back of all the stuff they do on the late kickoff, you know, with the fireworks and all that, because it is amazing. It's incredible. And to buy it on the back of all that and then get there and realize that 5 of our 8 Lions are missing.
Yeah, but Jack Dempsey will be at 8, so that'll be worth the admission alone.
When does he become eligible? Because, is he eligible in October or is it November?
I don't know.
Is he going to miss Australia?
I know it's the autumn test. He's eligible for the autumn test. I assume he probably played that. Presumably means he played his last game for Australia in the Rugby Championship, I would think.
Yeah,
which would be just before the window.
International career.
I'm sure it says on his Wikipedia page when his last game was. Was it a World Cup? In fact, was it not the World Cup?
It was the World Cup.
In which case, that's September.
It should be okay. Yeah.
So potentially, Jack Dempsey could be eligible for. Well, that's all we want. That's probably
why we want him to play against Australia, isn't it? Really,
it's ultimate crap housing, isn't it?
Yeah,
we've scheduled this match just to tie Jack Dempsey, and we're doing it against Australia. But yeah, I mean, I always kind of, I don't know. I think it's a good bunch of games. I think it's a good set of tests.
Yeah,
because
some really good ones in there.
You know, we were always kind of feel like we were always scratching around. Of you get 2 big, you know, 5 years ago, what we get 2 of the big names, and then you'd get a Tonga. But now we're regularly getting 3 of the big teams plus another.
Yeah, I think Fiji and Argentina are 2 really good ones for our sort of outside of the big name games.
Yeah. Because the other thing this week that's in all the news is that they've also announced the details of the tour to Argentina, because we knew they were touring Argentina this summer. They've kind of finalized the fixtures and stuff, and that's going to be interesting. I think there was somebody. Sorry, apologies because I can't remember who it was who was on our Patreon social media group had said that Jamie Ritchie's confirmed he's not going to be fit.
Yeah, until the last one.
So I think it's unlikely that he'll go on tour, because why would you drag him out on tour for? I mean, Gregor Townsend's done stranger things, but I wouldn't imagine he'd be dragged out on tour as a walking carrier. So I don't know. We've talked about this before. That's going to be interesting what they do with the Argentina tour.
Yeah, because it leaves a question about who's going to be the captain. Because I think we could be fairly certain that it's not going to be Stuart Hogg.
But I don't think he'll go on tour.
No.
And I think the excuse will be, and I think the same with Finn, and I think it will be, they're not coming on tour because they've played a lot of rugby and they had the Lions last year.
Yeah.
Even though it's also,
Yeah.
they're not coming on tour because they were naughty and went out for a drink.
Yeah. And we need to at least be seen to be exploring our options when it comes to both of them, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we're changing anything, but I would be looking at least looking like we're exploring what's there. I don't think Ali Price needs to go, who's another person who's an option for captain. Craig's not here, so I guess we could say Grant Gilchrist.
Yeah, that's who it'll be.
That would be my bet.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It'd be interesting to see what happens with that. Shall we talk about the URC this weekend then? Do you want to just mention that Embra had to?
I mean, yeah, I do want to mention that. Yeah.
Do you do it when Craig's not here?
I'd rather wait till he is here.
Okay, let's talk about Glasgow. So you'd rather talk about Glasgow than you would do about Embra having a snatch of a win against Embra.
Oh no, I'm going to talk about that. I just want to make sure Craig's here to listen.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, do you know, I tweeted about 2/3 of the way through the first half on Friday night that Glasgow's breakdown in the first half was incredible on Friday. Like the best I've seen it in a long time. Jack Dempsey and Ollie Keble in particular, but actually pretty much everyone, were fantastic. And we were in that game. But it then had a real hint of like, that was the best that we had. And then the Stormers just kind of soaked it up and then moved up a gear and we couldn't keep up with them. Damien Valemsi was ridiculous though.
Yeah. Glasgow played probably better than the score suggests. I thought it was an odd choice for Glasgow to put up a tweet this weekend comparing Rory Darge's performance to Hamish Watson's. Because I thought, this isn't the week to do that, lads. I know ticket sales for the 1872 might be slow, but you've just been housed 37 by the Stormers. I know Rory Darge's had a good game, but this probably isn't the time.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, its numbers are better.
Yeah,
but we did get a fair kicking. He played well again, and you're right. I do think that score makes it look like we got battered, which we did on the scoreboard, but they scored 2 or 3 quite quickly towards the end of the game as well. It's just classic Glasgow. They just can't, for some reason, if a game starts to get away from them, they can't claw it back. So if we're starting to lose around about the 60-minute mark, then we're going to lose by about 15 or 20 points. And it's happened 3 or 4 times this year.
Yeah, I wonder how much being on tour affects that as well. Because that's it's not just away from home; it's away from home for a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, and I to be honest, I do kind of like the way that they're treating it like a proper tour. Edinburgh and Glasgow actually both announced their touring squads on Twitter, which I thought was really cool. And then they're like doing little bits of Instagram videos from inside their training camps and stuff, and they're acting like they're on a proper tour rather than just being away for a couple of weeks to play these games.
I felt sorry for Rob Harley having to the amount of sunscreen that lad's going to have to get through. There was a video of him just smearing himself all over.
Is that the first time he's ever been in South Africa? Well, I suppose
he played in South Africa in the quadrilateral tournament. Do you remember that?
Oh God, yeah.
Samoa, South Africa. In fact, was it not just Samoa, South Africa, and us, and they still called it the quadrangle tournament?
Yeah, that does ring a bell, actually.
Yeah, he was on that too. I think that was one of his first tours to Scotland, actually. So he's been to South Africa before with Scotland.
And with Glasgow to play the cheetahs and stuff as well. I always forget that was a thing.
he probably was also in the squad for that really horrible game where we had to call up Adam Ash from the McPhail scholarship that
God.
time. That
Yeah.
was Ferncot's first summer tour.
Yes.
We got beat 50 something by South Africa in South Africa after. It was really weird too, that, because it was like, we're going to tour, we're going to play Canada and America and North America, fine. We're going to then go to Argentina, fine. But then we're just going to fly to South Africa for some reason to play a one-off
Yeah.
game.
Made no sense. We seem to be, I guess that if it's maybe like a COVID hangover thing where people are trying to get money back and stuff, we seem to be back into the era of weird and pointless summer tours. Like, what are
Yeah,
Wales doing playing 3 tests against South Africa the year after the Lions have been there in South Africa?
I feel like
Just a recipe for a disaster.
what's upsetting is we've been cheated out of our New Zealand All Blacks tour, because that was
Yeah.
supposed to be the year of COVID. That was going to be Scotland's year to tour New Zealand.
Yeah.
Fight, after kind of a couple of decades, but yeah, we've lost that now. So we've got Argentina.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get it again soon.
Which is going to be weird. I mean, Argentina's going to be weird because the Jaguar. I keep wanting to say the Jaguares, but that's the mascot. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, and they're playing in weird places.
I've got the email from the SIU here that says where they're playing.
They're playing in Huai, Salta, and Santiago del Estero.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a weird, yeah. Those are weird places to go and play. Unless they just don't have the, well, presumably though, if they don't, they would have played international games at the stadium where the Jaguars played.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't have that anymore, so now they're just scratching around trying to find some stadiums around the country they can play in.
Be interested to see if they are also going to go and play in Santiago, because they keep saying they're going to play Chile this year, but I don't know if that means they played 4 games in summer.
Yeah, possibly. And presumably that means it's just basically dragging everybody back from Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, because the first Argentina one's like the 2nd of July.
Mm-hmm.
So the Premiership final's not until the middle of June.
Yeah.
Maybe they've just stitched Chile up and they're not going to play them after all.
Yeah.
Which would be a shame, because like Scotland do things like, remember when we went to Australia a few years ago and we stopped in Suva and played Fiji?
Well, we got beaten by Fiji is what happened, Johnny.
I mean, I didn't want to talk about it that much detail, to be honest. I wanted to take the credit of the fact that Scotland are one of the few countries who actually will stop it in a tier 2 country, stop in and play Fiji, and talked about stopping in to play Chile and stuff. It's a shame if we've talked about it and it kind of sounded like
not done it.
Yeah, it sounded like it was almost a done deal. So maybe it'll still happen.
It might do. Maybe just kind of finalising it. I'm back to Glasgow then. You're not getting away from it that easy. I mean, if John was here, he'd probably be having another Danny Wilson rant.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really get away from them at this stage, because something is obviously going badly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same sort of things. We can't close out a game and we don't seem to have a plan B. We don't, if we don't go ahead in a game, we don't know what to do. I've just been saying I hate that. When Glasgow don't go ahead in a game, they don't know what to do.
But this comes back to, we've talked about this so many times now, about just, it's mental, right? I don't mean that it's mental that they do. It's more, it's a mental
problem.
It's a mental problem.
Yeah.
And it has been for Glasgow pre Danny Wilson as well. It's, you look at some of the stuff that's come out, and I know there's players with it. Adam Ash came out and said, "There's nothing. I never had a problem with the way Dave Rennie or the club treated me. I was fine." But then you had Matt Smith talking about how he was treated, and I think there is something underlying there that hasn't been addressed now for a while. Is that Glasgow lack a mental resilience to, like you said, when they fall behind, the heads tend to go, and the discipline has always been a problem, I think, over the last few years as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is maybe something that's come from the time that Finn Russell was there, because it's a lot of what goes wrong with Glasgow is what also still goes wrong with Finn, where if they're having fun, everything's fine. as soon as it stops being fun, then the sky's falling every single time. So if we get ourselves into a scrap where we can't, I'm doing it again. If Glasgow end up in a game where they can't do like Glasgow things and they can't throw it around because it's a close game and they're having to grind it, and then they start going behind and then they really can't chuck it around, then they start to lose their heads and they start to give away stupid penalties. And they just, from that point, they just never look like they're going to get back into the game. And then that's when they end up losing by about 15 points.
Yeah. And it's almost like nobody's ever addressed that issue at Glasgow. Nobody's ever taken a step back and said, what do we do to resolve this? How do we turn this around? What work do we need to do with the players as a player group? And I think there is something in the captaincy of Glasgow, I think, is an issue, because I think Ryan Wilson's a liability.
Yeah.
I think when they had, who did they have before? Or they unceremoniously dumped him from New Zealand.
Oh, Callum Gibbons.
When they had Callum Gibbons, I think he was a bit of a steadying influence. I think.
Yeah, because him and Wilson did kind of co-captain.
Yeah, I don't like co-captain. I think they should have just given it to Gibbons, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, I just think that I think they need a new captain.
Yeah, like I think undoubtedly, I'm sure you've said it before. Like Wilson is undoubtedly a good club leader and a good like social leader. He's probably great to be in charge of the boys who are in South Africa, but on the field, you don't want your captain punching people unless they really deserve it.
You don't put the social secretary in charge of the bus timetable, do you?
No, exactly. Yeah.
The social secretary's there to make sure everyone's having fun and enjoying themselves. They're not there.
Yeah, which he undoubtedly does really well.
Yeah, absolutely. But he could do that adequately without then having to deal with any of the practical stuff that needs to happen from a captain.
Yeah,
he could be the one to get in the shots, but he shouldn't be the one that works out. Do you know what time the trains everyone needs to get on to get there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I still think that Ali Price is probably the best choice for Glasgow captain.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And you probably do, but I think the problem is you need someone that, well, actually, in an ideal world in the URC, we're not really supposed to have.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to have crossover with national games anyway, but here we are.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens.
Craig's joined us. Hello, Craig. Just in time.
Hi, how are we doing?
We're just about to talk about Edinburgh.
Yeah, I'm very good. We've just finished talking about Glasgow and now we're getting on to the second URC game of Friday evening.
Oh, so I can't talk about Glasgow's
we still have time,
absolute
Craig.
disaster.
Do you want to talk about that, Craig? We've still got time. We're just finishing up.
How they absolutely collapsed under the pressure of being in South Africa and having to pay for things in a different pound and a different currency and stuff like that. No, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I don't know why. I apologise.
No, that's more or less exactly what we were just saying. Is Glasgow once again just like capitulated.
Yeah. So just for everyone who's listening, Johnny has been absolutely and utterly trying to bait me all week about the Edinburgh Zebra game to try and take away from me. Trying to stop me to slagging off Glasgow, and I haven't said anything about Glasgow apart from they completely capitulated, but that's a different story.
Well, let's talk about your comprehensive dismantling of Zebra then. Oh, hang on.
The thing is, this is what, don't get me wrong. I was watching the game. I couldn't make it, unfortunately, because I was looking after. I was on family duties, etc. And I was watching the game, and I was swearing, and I was uncomfortable, and it wasn't. There was things that went wrong, and I wasn't. But to be honest, we've come away with 5 points, and there's no more points to get. We couldn't have done any more. So yes, it was a bit squeaky bum time, and it has been covered over on social media and also throughout the media about how Edinburgh really weren't that well prepared that week. but we came away with 5 points, and that's what we needed to come away with.
There you go. Job done, Johnny.
Yeah, do you know, I'd like, to be fair, they did get 5 points. It's just a lot more fun to talk about exactly how they got to end up with 5 points. For me.
By the comments, 5 points, Johnny.
All I'm going to say is by the 78th minute at Scotstoun, Glasgow were 30 points ahead of Zebra and didn't need a last-minute penalty to win the game. We had our 5 points wrapped up within about 45 minutes.
How were they doing after 78 minutes against the Stormers, though?
Yeah, the Stormers are what John would call a proper team.
Yeah, and I think we scored exactly the same points as they did the last time we played them, actually. And then
you drew them.
Yeah, we did. So yeah, and also Edinburgh have come home from South Africa, being the first URC team to beat a South African side.
They have actually, to be fair. And I'll tell you what, it might not have been Leinster's first choice team, but the Sharks did an absolute number on them on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Although I
think the SRU should just start paying me and Craig, because we do a much better job of manufacturing the Edinburgh-Glasgow rivalry than the two official Twitter accounts do, I think.
I just can't be doing with that pish. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll allow it.
You'll allow it. It's okay.
Well, that's it. We'll probably talk about that in Hands in the Rock, but yeah, it's... Yeah.
But yeah, I think what's more worrying really now for Edinburgh is, I think we're at a stage where, hopefully we'll have the reaction, and I would expect us to have a fairly strong game against Ulster, and fabulous to hear that the Dam is virtually sold out now, which is for Ulster, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. And a big thank you goes out to all the Edinburgh fans and the fans that have come along those that have come along for the first time to experience just how good the Dam is. So it's great to see that. But also, my only real concerns are our injury list at this moment in time, because that's Montoya, I think, is out, and we've got our two South African front rowers, Linda Bruin and I knew I was going to forget one of them.
Bowen Venter,
who are
That's
both
your prop
out
card
for a
taken
long
away.
time. Yeah, I know. So we have got some concerns there, but it is going to give the younger guys a little bit more time. So yeah, should be good.
100 extra tickets, as Johnny's just said in the private chat. Who's cancelled to get that many tickets freed? I reckon some big corporate do.
Yeah, I think so. Because it was on the Edinburgh Twitter today. We've had a group cancellation, and we've now got 100 tickets for the main stand. So who's got 100 tickets?
You'll probably find it'll be someone coming over from Ulster. It'll be Ulster sponsors who have probably cancelled, and they'll not be coming or something like that. No.
I'll tell you what,
Ulster are running scared.
For all the unfairness and stuff that people had at the start of the URC, and we talked about it being a weird experiment and stuff. South Africa's shaking it up a fair bit, and we're now talking about 2 games left, and I think there's about 8 or 10 teams who could end up basically in any order at the top.
Well, I was looking at that. I was just going to say that now, because I thought Glasgow and Edinburgh were maybe at risk of not making the quarters, but actually it's really tight. Actually, from 9th upwards, like Scarlets are on a 9th on 43, then Bulls in 8th on 48, Edinburgh 7th 49, Glasgow 6th on 50, then Ulster and Sharks and Munster are all on 51 points. Stormers on 52, and then Leinster on 61. I mean, Leinster are going to top the table, the kind of normal table. But so between this 10 points, less than 10, but 8 points between the Scarlets in 9th and the Stormers in 2nd.
Yeah.
And what's that? That's 2 bonus point wins back to back.
Yeah.
And
it means that
losses.
there could be a fair amount at stake at the 1872, which is very exciting.
I think, it is exciting. I think you're probably looking at whether or not you potentially whether or not you're in a home or away.
I mean, like, realistically, I think that both Edinburgh and Glasgow have a better, not a better chance, more likely to lose than win this weekend. Those are two tough games this weekend. And then it could come down to the 1872, and whoever takes the points from that ends up in one of the much better quarterfinal spaces.
Excellent.
Or it might even
come. We're all going, aren't we?
If Scarlets get, we're all going.
Yeah. Well, I think it's. Yeah. Cammy, get off the pitch. Leave him alone.
Get off him, Cammy.
Show me the Flinty.
I'm just waiting on my. I'm just waiting on my daughters. Daddy, what's Cammy doing to Flinty?
No less than he deserves, Craig. That's what I'll be doing. No less than he deserves.
That's not really Flinty.
Yeah. Don't worry, that's not the real.
Just there punching him, going, "Soylent Green is people."
No, it's going to be an interesting one because I think what one thing I would say that Edinburgh kind of showed at the weekend was that the 9, 10, 12 pick is very much the key to Edinburgh. They looked a little bit like they struggled a fair bit. Blair Kinghorn struggled with other people around him rather than Lang and Ben Velikot. So it was quite interesting to watch that. I think they've got themselves into a rhythm in that 9, 10, 12. So it should be interesting to see who we get, what team sheet comes out tomorrow, and then especially when we go up against Glasgow, how we're going to deal with that one as well. Because again, I think it's either going to be incredibly turgid against Glasgow, where it's just a kick fest, and it's just no, you have the ball and see what you can do with it. No, you have the ball, or Mike Blair's going to stick to his guns, and we're going to come out throwing the ball about. It'll be really interesting.
79th minute Dunky Weir drop goal. That's what I'm putting it down to.
Well, we could do with that. Do with Dunky Weir for us for a 79th minute kick over. The last time the last time we won against Ulster, I think he did that at the Kingspan. When he was playing for us, but
I think the thing that worries me is potentially, depending on how Scarlets and Bulls get on this weekend, and I don't know who they're playing, but you potentially going into the 1872, not just for who's going to get the better quarterfinal, but for who's going into the quarterfinal.
Yeah,
because if Glasgow and Edinburgh both lose this weekend, and Bulls and Scarlets win, then it's going to be very tight.
Do you want to know who Bulls are playing this weekend?
Who?
I actually should have known this already. It's Glasgow.
It's Glasgow, yeah. I was going to say.
I thought we had the Lions, but no, it's the Bulls.
No, it's the Bulls. Yeah.
And Scarlets are playing Ospreys.
We see. I think Ospreys will take that one because Ospreys look pretty good against Cardiff.
Yeah,
Ospreys seem to have a habit of raising their game for when they're playing the other regions or the other competitive ones. They don't bother against the Dragons.
Does anybody bother against the Dragons?
now that Alan Jones has embraced his baldness and he isn't going for the comb over all the time, I think he's decided that he's just going to play this out. So he's
being forced to play in URC and Pro 14 games.
Yeah, he's not getting protected anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Anything more on the URC?
Don't think so.
No. Okay. We'll talk. There is some URC news of an announcement of some sort, but I suspect we're probably going to go into that when we discuss the next time, which is Scotland versus Italy. Then.
Actually, while we're on the URC, because we didn't very quickly cover the other bit of news, which is that Nathan Bombrus has got to be in charge of Rugby Canada.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that's just because he missed Canada, though.
Yeah. Like, I can't see any other reason. I guess it's probably fun, but I don't think being in charge of Canada right now is fun because the men are in an absolute free fall and the women are taking them all to court. So
yeah, that's very true. I was going to say, first, what's the in trade looking like? Well, we've got this report of like harassment from the women's team, and the men's team currently sit 354th in the world.
Oh man, it'll be interesting. Mind you, at least we're not Spain, I suppose.
He'll not be paid. They'll have Kingsley Jones's monthly Skype subscription off the book now. Is what's his name still out there though? Former Wales attack coach.
Oh, Howley.
Howley. Is Rob
Howley.
Howley not?
I think
Is Howley
he is. Yeah.
Was he not USA? I thought it was USA. Is it Canada?
No, it was Canada he went to.
At least he's got all the red stuff that he just needs to scratch the badge out. Because he'll need the money, obviously. Because
he needs to stay away.
Anyway.
He needs to stay away from scratches. That's his problem. So we'll find out where Rob Howley is. If anyone knows where Rob Howley is, let us know. Get in touch. Rob, if you're listening, get in touch. Let us know. Hope you keep okay. Right, we're talking about Scotland, Italy. Then, let's deliberately park the discussion where we're going to go on a rant about funding for women's rugby to like the second half of this discussion tonight. But we're going to have to talk about it because it's come up a lot. But the frustrating thing, Craig, I think was, I know you said this in the group chat, was just that the debate is the basics letting them down. And this, I suppose there's two reasons why the basics can let you down. Is one is you're not spending enough time on it in training, which is time in training, or they're not being taught right at grassroots level. But I think as Rory put the question in the group chat saying, well, have this set of women been through the mini section? I think you pointed out, well, they probably would have been. They probably would have come through. Most of them would have come through some sort of system. They haven't kind of landed. Although I think Rona Lloyd might have been about 16 when she kind of first picked up, properly started playing. But the basics, I think, are when you're not doing the basics well. I mean, the part of it, I suppose, is it a kind of mental thing that it's just you're under pressure and then they go, or is it down to that you just can't execute them because you're not practicing them enough?
I think the practicing side of things, I think, is the biggest problem. I think it's and I promised myself I was coming on tonight and I wasn't going to talk about funding until a little bit later. I was going to talk about everything else. But yeah, when you're only thinking about rugby, and especially when you hit camp before the Six Nations, all the way up to the Six Nations and through the Six Nations, you should be concentrating on rugby every day of the week and have a couple of days, apart from your days off. The issue I felt myself, well, first of all, Italy were very, very strong in defence and very physical. They shut us down very, very quickly. And that goes back to our passing didn't seem to be accurate or quick enough. Our play through 9, 10, 12 was ponderous at times. And for me, I think that's watching it. Whenever they got pushed hard by the defence, that's where the mistakes came in. And I also felt that.
I thought he paused for effect there. You can hear you now.
I thought he paused for effect.
I feel like when paused for effect.
Sorry,
and then there was a point in which I was
going to have to go and I'm going to have to go and get my kids back onto the electric bicycles to power up the Wi-Fi. I think and I'm at home as well. It's not like I'm in a hotel. The issue I felt was one of the bigger issues was the fact that the players that have been around for the longest were the ones that didn't play as well, or folded under the pressure a little bit more than the new crop of players that are coming through.
Yeah. And we've talked about that before, though, haven't we, Johnny? That there is I think there will be, and this is true of the men. We've said this is true of some of the men's team as well. That I think there has to be a bit of a hangover from what was happening to the Scotland team, pre-COVID, let's say, where every Six Nations they might give one of the teams a scare, but generally they were losing against the likes of Spain, which I don't think they would do now. Just to mean, and they would losing badly against Italy, and actually that game was really close. I think there maybe is that element of fear that hangs over the more experienced players of we've been here before and it's not been a nice place, and actually the outcome has been pretty bad. And maybe lacking that little, we've said that of Stuart Hogg before, that little bit of trust and that little bit of kind of confidence that it's if you stick to your systems, it's going to turn out all right.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest as well, with the performances that some of those players have put in, and as Craig says, they're not concentrating on rugby full time, they'll be tired. Like, after the Wales game, we talked about Lana Skeldon carrying like an absolute monster for 80 minutes from the front row. And then she was a little bit off the boil on Saturday night. We've talked about how great Jade Conkle's been for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then she was a little bit off the boil on Saturday. But when you're performing like that at that kind of level for that long, and then you're also thinking about your own job and stuff at the same time, you're going to, no wonder they're shattered. And so there is going to come a point where probably some of those more senior players who have done a lot of the carrying of the team for a long time are going to get to a point where until their only job is to be ready to play rugby, then they're going to hit a point where they can't do it.
Yeah. We'll circle back to that in a bit. I think the other thing I thought, Craig, was that some of the decision making was a little bit off as well. And there was a couple of times when, particularly, if you look at the stats, right, the points to visit to the 22, Italy got 4.2 points every time they were in the Scotland 22. Scotland came away with 1.2.
Yeah.
And you look at the number of times Scotland were in the 22 in scoring positions and had Italy under a lot of pressure and didn't come away with points was really disappointing. I think there was a couple of times when they could have put more pressure on in the maul, and they might have even got a penalty try out of it, because Italy were all over the place and the ball came out and it was too early.
Yeah.
There was another couple of times where they just didn't take the right option. I think there's one point in the kick to touch when actually taking 3 points and taking over the scoreboard would have been the right choice. So little things like that, I think, are letting them down as well.
Yeah, and I think it was a very frustrating performance for those who are watching it, and I'm going to park all the discussion about if they were full time and they were this, that, and the other, because the problem I have is I'm quite frustrated at the moment because we are going to be in a situation we are facing being last in the Six Nations again, subject to a game in Dublin, and the players that are playing at the moment, where they play, most of them play for professional teams. They are better than the results, especially when, as you say, when they were entering the 22 and making some fairly either poor decisions or poorly coached decisions. They were, whenever they tried to put pressure on Italy, it went wrong. And there were little bits and pieces like, I think we had three lineouts, real pressure lineouts. We've got the ability to score, and it was a squint. It was a squint throw from Skeldon. So you find those issues happening, and as a fan, you get frustrated, and those are the sort of coach killer moments within games that really drive the coaches mad that are being that are happening. And yeah, they're tired, and I understand that, but they're meant to be internationalists, and they're meant to perform to the highest level as they possibly can. And so for me, it was, this game was there for the taking, and they didn't take it. They almost bottled, it's the wrong word because that's a really negative one, but they just didn't perform to their highest level. I've got to say, Molly Wright was absolutely fabulous for her first start on the loose head, and Evie Gallagher, who was playing in her first start at number 8 because Jade's now injured with a rib injury. She was fabulous as well. So I think that what was good is you're seeing some of the forward pack coming in for the old guard, and they're actually performing to a very, very good level, and so we're not losing any of that side of things. But I don't know if that was. It seemed to be more the fact of, and to go back to what you said, Cammy, it almost looked like the elder players, as in the players they've got the most caps, decided we're going to do this ourselves and we're going to get on with it, and that's where the wheels fell off, I think.
Yeah, and I think that it's that expectation, isn't it, Johnny, that actually because this team have now qualified for a World Cup, because over the last 12 to 18 months they've been putting in performances, because I suppose over the course of the Six Nations they've been competitive, even against France and England. They've had periods of time putting these teams under pressure, and you look at the Wales result, was close. This game was close. We've come away with a losing bonus point. The frustrating thing is they're there or thereabouts. They're a decision. The one decision there, one accurate pass away from winning these games, and that's going to frustrate them. But I think as a fan watching, that's what's frustrating.
Yeah, I actually felt probably more annoyed at the end of that game on Saturday than I think I would have been had the men lost to Italy this year, which is really weird because Italy women and Scotland women are a lot closer together in terms of performance than the men's teams are. But I don't know, just for some reason it was a real sickener on Saturday night, because there have been some great performances, and we don't want to keep coming back to the circumstances that the women's team are in, but when you consider what they're up against, they've done really, really well. And like Craig says, that was a game that was there to be won, and it just felt like a real heartbreaker to not win it.
Yeah. And we can talk about that, and I think we should. I think it's right we talk about it every week. I think it's good. I think you're right, Craig. We shouldn't open with it. We should analyze the game as we would do with any other game. But I think it would be remiss of us not to keep talking about it. And I think that we've said this every week, but the worry for me is brilliant with even if we finish last, the fact that if they give them good account of themselves against Ireland, and end up last, you think, well, do you know what? Then we're there or thereabouts with 3 out of the other 5. That's fine. There's something to work on. My concern is that those other 3 teams are potentially investing more than we are, and seem to have more of an idea, more of a commitment to women's rugby, and then we're only 12 months out of them turning up and having more time together, having more price time. I guess that's the worry, is that I don't see. There's still nothing coming out of the SRU of what are they actually doing. Everything's still just kind of little bits and pieces from the squad itself.
Yeah, the problem I have is that the SRU seem to be thinking that if they put their fingers in their ears and cover their eyes, they don't need to talk about it. And I think I mentioned earlier on Twitter about, you look at, I've forgotten the girl's name, but one of the Irish players put a wee post up that was then retweeted by
Aoife McDermott.
Yeah.
Which was back at work on Monday morning.
And I think it's got to the point where, if we need to start engaging, World Rugby need to start engaging in this, because it really is. It makes World Rugby look pretty stupid. But what upsets me the most about it all is the fact that it just makes the SRU look like what we all say they are when we're in the pub and we're having a pint and we're saying, "Oh, typical SRU, they're all blazers and chinos and old men at the top who don't think women should be playing rugby." And that isn't the case. There are some fantastic people working within the SRU who are engaged with women's rugby and are working incredibly hard with women's rugby and engaging at the in the mini sections and in the junior sections, and also with women's rugby as a whole. There's an acceleration of teams really coming through. There's from when I first started with the How Harlequins. To where we are now, there's a full set of regional leagues that used to be National Division 2, which is now a set of regional leagues with plenty teams there, and they're all feeding through. The problem we have is we don't seem to. We're doing it there because it doesn't cost that much money, and this is what annoys me, is the fact that the SRU need to engage and need to say, right, this is where we're going, but they don't say either that, or they're going to turn around next week at the end of the Six Nations and say, this is our new plan for the rest of the year and for the future. Well, that would be great, but that would
be great. And if it turns out that is the plan, and they've told the women at the start of the tournament that was going to be the plan, then brilliant. And and it's that's great. But at the minute, as far as we can tell, from a publicity point of view, the other unions have all managed to announce during or pre-tournament the financial commitment they're making to the women's game. And all we've had from the SRU is quotes from Brian Easton when he's been asked about it, and quotes from some players as they've been asked about it. There's been no public statement from the SRU about the future of women's rugby. And in fact, this week we've had the URC saying they've had some sort of away day where they've decided, where the said, well, what does the future of our tournament look like? And the consistent suggestion that's come up from within the URC, i.e. those staff working at the URC, is we need a women's league.
Yeah.
And the URC have basically had to come out begging, saying, we'd love to do this. We think it would work. We think it'd be a great product to add to what we're doing already, but we need the unions to buy in. And that's it feels like a really strange backwards way to approach it, right? The league, who in effect are owned by the unions, are having to go to the unions to say, we could do this. Right.
Yeah. It'd be great if they could do it like the 100 and have them like the same 16 teams and playing on the same days and stuff, because that looked like really good fun last year.
But the problem is that, and it should be the other way around. The union should be going to the ERC saying, we'd like to do a league. Do you reckon you can support us with it? But it's the league, which isn't. I mean, the league's just an combined administrative function of all the unions anyway. It's essentially their own staff telling them what to do and to get on with it, which is, I don't know, it just feels a bit disheartening. I'd rather it was
but this is the thing though, and this is where, sorry Johnny, I've cut you off and I apologise, but this is what annoys me about it all, and God, we might be going over old ground, but the issue seems to be that the unions are sitting back until pressure builds and public pressure builds, and then they begrudgingly do it. And this is what pisses me off. Sorry, this is what rips my knitting. Is the fact that they haven't. I know players who have played for Scotland in the days when men stood at the side of the pitch and folded their arms and went, I don't ken why you're playing that game, darling, and all this, that, and the other. I know how strong those women were at that time, and they got no recognition. We're moving forward. I would just like the SRU to embrace it and say, here we go. We've got 4 tests coming up in the autumn series, one of which is an added extra again. Why don't we use that as our money raising? We're going to raise that. If it's a sellout, we're going to use all of that money for the international, for the Scotland international women's team, and fully fund it for 5 years.
Yeah. The WRU reckon they'd make 3 to 4 million off the last time they played the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
the thing that really worries me, if and when World Rugby do get involved, is the rate that these other unions are becoming professional and having teams full of full-time professionals. In men's rugby, you wouldn't let a team of amateurs rock up and scrummage against a full professional outfit.
No.
You just wouldn't, because it's dangerous.
No.
So we're going to get to a point where there are serious, fully professional international teams, and Scotland and Ireland are going to be sending out amateur players, and someone's going to turn around and go, no, sorry, that's not happening. We need to catch up.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you've got a really, okay, I know how the process works, and when you're injured, you're covered insurance wise, and this, that, and the other, and the SRU have things in place. But there's Jenny Maxwell, for example, and Jenny, speedy recovery, a horrendous injury at the weekend, and you got to think of, not only is her playing career curtailed there now, but her career alongside it is curtailed because she can't go to work because she's got all this rehab to do. She's got all this, maybe if she has to go for operations, etc. So there's two knock-on effects there. Now, if she was a fully paid professional, all she's got to do now is get through her recovery and then start her rehab, and that's what she's got to concentrate on. But she's now got to try and concentrate on rehabbing, getting back to work, earning money so she can keep a house over her head, all these different things. And I know that we keep going on about this, but
I think the big worry for me is now it's now, right? And we've said this is the time to do it. And the problem is that last time there was a big shift in rugby across the world towards professionalism. Scotland massively missed the boat, and it's taken 20 years for the men's game to catch up, and to get to a point where we're competitive now, right? But we were rubbish through the 2000s and most of the 2010s, and that you could put that squarely back on the fact that the SRU messed up professionalism. Glasgow, when did the Glasgow win the Pro 12? Was that 2012?
Yeah,
13. But
I thought it was
50 think how long?
actually,
50. Oh yeah. That's 15 years it took, a Scottish team to win the Pro 12, 14, or the Celtic Nations or whatever it was.
Mm.
And it's because they messed up professionalism. And potentially you could set back women's rugby by 15 years if you don't get it right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're behind. We're so far.
2015, yeah.
The Edinburgh fan knows when it was. Anyway, but that's the issue, is we're behind the curve already.
Yeah.
And, it's just, and it's turning up, and you can see it. We've got phenomenal players who are putting in a huge amount of hard work, putting a lot of sacrifice to wear the jersey. But now it's a point where we need to be concentrating on getting them focused solely on rugby. And if we're just as Johnny said earlier on, we're so close, close.
I'm gonna leave it there because I feel like we're probably going to carry on ranting about this in Hands in the Ruck, and I've already had to mark a time when I'm going to have to bleep you, Craig, and I can feel you building up a head of steam. So before you disgrace yourself on the main pod, we'll move on to Hands in the Ruck in a moment on the Patreon only podcast. So thank you everybody who's listened to the main podcast. If you're watching this live as a Patreon, hang about. We normally have a wee short comfort break, and then we'll carry on with the podcast. If you're listening on the Patreon pod and you aren't watching live, then you can just listen to the second part in a separate episode. However, for everybody that's just joining us for the main podcast, it's goodbye from this week. We will be back next week with a review of the URC. We'll talk about Super 6 now. We did have time to talk about Super 6 this week. I might have a little rant in Hands in the Ruck about that. And we'll talk about the Women's Ireland game as well. But for the moment, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Craig and Johnny.
Bye.
Bye. Got to film my juice.